My name is Victoria Hasler from Austria, and I have a question to the colleague from Australia and to the US. I refer to your remarks on the values of protected areas or of nature in general for the health and the psychic or psychology or spirituality of mankind besides the ecosystem services. And I'm interested in data on it. Is it just an idea or a fact, or do you really have done some research in this field? And if yes, could you provide us with this information or this data?
Thank you. I'm happy to take the question. We've been working on this idea for a decade. We have worked very closely with research institutions, universities. We have collected valid scientific research from around the world that relates to not only the psychological benefit, so for your head, but the physical benefits that arise from contact with nature. We have researched that through properly validated studies, and we understand that it actually works. And so there is a clear body of scientific evidence which I'm quite happy to direct you to. In fact, I have some copies of that with me at this conference, anticipating and hopefully anticipating such a question. The disconnect from nature for many populations is well known, whether it's food production. In my country, young people think that milk solely comes from a supermarket shelf. They do not understand the connection between the productivity of the land and indeed their survival. So in a general sense, there's a whole range of programs and activities which I think I mentioned last night, working with younger people, but also new constituencies. And the health sector is increasingly looking for other interventions rather than the epidemiological interventions that we are so used to. They're looking for ways to refer people who are not sick from disease, but they are sick from society, and they're looking for alternative strategies. So we find a hunger in the medical community, and our conference in Melbourne this year brought together many people who had that same experience and were looking to find and explore new ways to make nature, whether it's clean water, clean air, biodiversity values, relevant and connected to those issues we face as societies across the board. I was reminded of a study in West Africa around the mountain gorilla, where that community needed to solve the health problems of that community before the conservation of the gorilla became a priority for the community. And in working to deal with the disease transmission between the two human and nature populations, they found solutions in the conservation of the gorilla. So I think there's lots of evidence out there that it's an area worth the exploring. There is good science and opportunity. But if you think in your own right, many people in this room, where do you go to find solace, to renew yourself, to rebuild the spirit? And it might be as simple as a quiet moment of reflection in the plaza in the town here. It may also be a remote walk to the top of the mountain. But that renewal of spirit is in the land, and I think that's a very important lesson and opportunity for us to explore.
Thanks, Gerald. John, and then Erica.
I would add, certainly the folks in Australia have really pioneered this, but the U.S. is picking up the ball as well to run with it. And I would suggest one is to convince the medical community, the physicians out there needs to be a strong body of research. And that is really just beginning in many ways. There is already some quantitative work that has been done, some longitudinal studies that indicate that certain time in the outdoors are equivalent to a certain dosage of antidepressants. We are starting to, in the U.S., develop partnerships with the medical community where they are literally prescribing a park visit as an antidote to a particular malady that you may have, and we're developing a whole park prescriptions program. I think this has the potential to significantly reposition the way the outdoors are viewed. And so I would encourage all of you within your respective countries and protected areas to reach out to the medical community, particularly to the medical universities. I've been recently invited to come speak at the Harvard Medical School and the Harvard School of Public Health about specifically this opportunity to new medical students that are beginning to develop their field of study as well as their practice. And so this is a great opportunity for us to really rethink how the outdoors are viewed.
Thanks, John.
Well, I know that the question was addressed mainly to our Australian and US colleagues, but I would like to use the opportunity to tell you that EUROPARC is becoming very active on these issues. First of all, you should know that now we have a working group on protected areas and health, which is being led by one of our council members, Roland Ozins. You can contact him. Roland, if you can please stand up so that people can contact you on this issue. The working group will collect information to benefit our members, and also will look to contacts with the medical society and try to build the bridges and take forward this work in Europe as well. And of course, working closely with the Australian and the US colleagues. And on spirituality, indeed, I've heard a lot about the spiritual values of nature at the Wilderness Congress at Wildline in Mexico last year. And I have to say, we very seldom mention the spiritual values here in Europe. And that's a pity. We should change that. And as a federation, I think we are starting to change this by getting very involved in the Wilderness Initiative, in the Wild Europe Initiative. We have initiated a wilderness working group that already developed a first definition of wilderness you will hear about in workshop 2 and probably in the closing session. But just want to say that one of the key words in this definition is spirituality, spiritual values of nature. So I think we are starting to catch up on these two important issues in our protected area work and as a network.
Thank you very much.
My name is Bjarne Seop. I'm from Denmark, representing the Danish Outdoor Council. First of all, I would just point your attention to a Scandinavian report on the combination between outdoor recreation and health. I think it was published in 2008. So if anyone is interested in that, I can give some more information. But my question or my comment is especially to Harvey and John, who both talked about talking it up, protected areas, and expanding our circle. I very much agree, but I also think then that we need to change our language and change the way we speak, because we all know what biodiversity and Natura 2000 is, but it doesn't make much sense, as we also heard in the presentation today, to the average citizen. So my question is mostly directed to the National Park Service. If you have a strategy for what you call friend raising, and if you have that strategy, what it's like. And a final comment is just that I'm very happy that the slow food movement is here, because food and eating is something we can all relate to, and it makes it very specific. So I think that's at least one way of going about it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paulo Castro from Portugal. I'm an EUROPARC Council member, and I would like to do just a comment. Okay. We are speaking about biodiversity, we are speaking about food production, quality food production, we are speaking about European reality. If we were on an agriculture meeting, we would be speaking about less favored areas and DOP, protected origin denominations. But in fact, in many situations, we are speaking about the same places and the same persons. This means that in many protected areas and in many Natura 2000 sites in Europe, you also have at the same time, the same place, less favored areas classified by the CAP policy, and also the quality food products. And I can give you a rough example, a very short example. In North Portugal, there are 4 parks. One of them is a national park, the others are nature parks. Plus the Natura 2000, this comes to 500,000 hectares. Roughly half of it, like in Europe, is managed by protected areas, let's say 250,000 hectares. But at the same time, it's all inside less favored areas, and it touches 40 DOP products of Europe, amongst wines, meat, several kinds of meat, olive oil, almonds, chestnuts. This means that it is possible, and it exists really in Europe, in Portugal, in Spain, in Italy, and other countries, places where a good quality of management of the environment matches with a good quality of food production, and both are recognized by EU. And my statement is this one. If, when DG Environment is concerned about the management of Natura 2000, which is really a key issue in terms of Europe, at least let's start with those ones that are already on site working. And in fact, protected areas are the closest environmental administration to the Natura 2000s already existing and already working there. And please take into consideration when you are giving priority in terms of financing, that in fact, it will be much easier, at least for half of the Natura 2000 sites, to start with protected areas than to wait with this incredible, complex national policy of deciding who is going to manage the Natura 2000 sites, which is in fact taking us so much time, so much effort at national level. And eventually, this could be a good opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can I turn to the panel maybe to answer particularly the questions from Germany? I think John, Harvey, they were particularly addressing to you.
Okay, I'll take a shot at the... you're absolutely right. We have been conducting some research on particular terms and how they are perceived by the public in the United States. For instance, biodiversity is perceived as very negative by U.S. citizens. It's seen as a limitation on use of lands, whereas the word nature is very positive. So we are attuned to the use of our language in how we talk about what we do and what we want to do into the future. The second piece of this is who's speaking. All too often, it's as I said before, it's just us talking, and we need to create a whole new cadre, a whole new generation of folks that speak in their own language, shall we say, to the values of the environment. For instance, young people that we are providing opportunities for them to make contact with nature and then use their own media, social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of the opportunities that are out there that are advancing much faster than we can keep up. But they use those to communicate their spiritual, their adventure in these extraordinary places. And by then capturing that and capturing that enthusiasm amongst them, you begin to build a whole new constituency around protected areas. You know, our kids are much more worldly than we were. They are. My daughter, who is 25, speaks 4 languages and is in regular communication with people her age all over around the world, and she can do it with 3 of them at the same time. I have hard enough time with 1, and I think that that's how we're going to build a new constituency. And there is a deep awareness about the concerns with the environment amongst young people, and there is an activism as well. And all they need is our help in many ways to bring them together.